Well, welcome back to the Cast. A quiet week for the economy, a lot of volatility in financial markets. Of course, uncertainty continues with the political election, and COVID cases continue to be an issue for us around the world and across the country. With me, as always, my great team, Rahil Jaz. Wow, welcome back.
Hey, Mr. Roach, how you doing?
Good to see you. Jack, welcome back to the show.
Hi, how are you
Hi,
doing?
Lily. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Great to see you. Mr. Murphy?
Hey, good to
What's
be back.
happening?
Nothing much.
And great to see you, Nicole. Welcome back to the program.
Great to be here as always.
We're getting popular as a team. I don't know if you recognize our hits on YouTube are getting up each week, and we're getting some feedback and commentary throughout the week. So hopefully you're getting some for your friends. Don't forget to tell your friends and family to listen to the KingCast at kingschoolct.org. All right, as always, we have a great show for you today. The Fed chairman has things to say about the future of the economy. We're going to talk about Dr. Fauci's outlook for the vaccine for COVID. What did we learn this week? Our fun segment, King Things in Sports. Kamala Harris makes history as the vice president-elect. And, of course, economy and the markets. All right, I'm your host, as always, Frank Roach, starting us off today with our discussion about Fed Chair Powell and his outlook for the economy. Nicole, tell us about your report today.
So Fed Chairman Jerome Powell participated in a virtual panel discussion this week at the European Central Bank Forum. In his presentation, Powell suggested that the economy as we know it might be over. He was commenting on the fact that the global pandemic has caused an acceleration of certain trends that will result in massive changes to the world economy. Specifically, technology, telework, and automation have become much more pervasive and will have an ongoing impact on how people work and live. As we learned in econ in the last quarter, technology advances are positive for society in terms of increased efficiencies. However, the rapid adoption of technology has the potential to cause serious disruptions and dislocations in the economy in the short term. Many jobs will be eliminated because of technology, and those workers losing their jobs will need to be retrained to become productive again. But the transition can be very painful for those negatively impacted. Powell also mentioned that the economy is not out of the woods even though the stock market hit new highs. He sees the need for more fiscal and monetary stimulus until we get past the pandemic. This is particularly the case as we see increasing surges in the spread of COVID. Some worry the stimulus will ultimately result in inflation in the US economy. However, the pandemic has caused a shift left of the aggregate demand curve, and the stimulus will try to shift it back to the right. Also, the technology advances during the pandemic that I previously mentioned should shift the aggregate supply curve to the right, which should also keep inflation under control. There's a lot of uncertainties going forward, but it appears that Powell understands the risks of the pandemic and has a well-thought-out plan to get the U.S. through this difficult period.
Nicole, great report and way to identify those changes in aggregate supply and aggregate demand that really impact the economy. Remember, that's what the central banks are all about, is managing aggregate demand, aggregate supply. So really interesting insights there. We have some interesting feedback from the World Economic Forum, Nicole, which is from where this came, right? And this guy, the leader of the forum right now is Klaus Schwab, I believe he's from Germany. Talk about some really radical changes to our economic structure, the nation state, right? Whether we should go a global governance or not. And of course, attacks on capitalism, right? The ownership asset aspect of things. So really interesting conversation is going to come forward out of this. And of course, it's part of our political story right here in the United States. So a great report there. Always well done. All right, Lily, you're going to talk to us about Dr. Fauci. He came out this week talking about the vaccine with some positive news, I think. Why don't you tell us what Dr. Fauci has to say?
White House coronavirus advisor Dr. Fauci said Thursday a vaccine to bring an end to the pandemic now appears to be on the horizon, but he warned it may not be enough to help eradicate the disease. Fauci's comments came 3 days after Pfizer and BioNTech said that early results showed their vaccine candidate was more than 90% effective in preventing COVID infections. Huge challenges remain before a vaccine can be rolled out, but the development raised expectations that one could be delivered perhaps even before the end of the year. The vaccine efficacy was significantly higher than scientists had been hoping for. Fauci had previously said one that is 50% or 60% effective would have been acceptable. It is hoped a vaccine could help bring an end to the coronavirus pandemic that has claimed over 1.28 million lives worldwide. Dr. Fauci said, "I see my future as doing the same thing as we get our arms around this outbreak. We essentially put it to rest, but as David said, putting it to rest doesn't mean eradicating it."
Okay, so kind of positive from Fauci, right? Markets reacted very positive to these comments this week. Pfizer, AstraZeneca are competing to be the first ones out there with their vaccines. It seems to be going well. Speculation of something maybe late December. Russia has a project underway that's also seemed to have some efficacy. So positive news for sure. Markets really enjoyed this. A lot of volatility at the start of the week on the back of this news. Of course, each time we get this news, there's always a day later where, well, wait, hold on a second. The trials aren't going as expected. It's not quite as exciting, right? So we had some volatility both ways on this idea. But it seems like positive developments. Also, when we look at CDC data for the COVID, we find that viral loads are falling. And then did you see Elon Musk yesterday? He tweeted some information about 4 tests he took yesterday. 2 came back positive, 2 came back negative. And which he said indicated that the testing isn't really those quick tests. They were the quick tests. He said they're not really that reliable. And so now he's waiting on a 24-hour test. But anyway, some uncertainty going on, more cases rising. Fortunately, the viral loads aren't as high. And of course, we want to watch hospitalizations and deaths as the real areas of concern. Speculation New York City might close their schools this week. All right, nice report as always, Lily. And that's always good stuff to know about. We keep up with COVID. And hopefully we can come out of lockdown sooner rather than later. All right, enough of that for now. Let's talk about
What did we learn this week?
I love this segment, as you know. Talk about what we learned this week. We have wonderful teachers at King. We have great students at King. So we want to see what goes on in the classroom. Jack, start us off.
So this week I learned proofs in my geometry class, such as side, side, side congruence, angle, side, angle congruence, CP-CTC congruence. There's a few more.
Okay. Hey, Jack, I had a couple of my adult friends comment on your excellent What Did We Learn thing last week. Yeah, they liked you were able to list those things about, what was it, organisms, right? What's a living thing?
What makes a thing living?
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, nice and done. Lily, what'd you learn this week?
So I'm in Senor Gracia's honors Spanish class, and this week we learned about geography in Spain and where different cities and mountains and rivers are.
Okay. I'm a big fan of geography, a very fun thing to do. A great contest amongst your friends if you're bored and you want to do something nerdy like geography. List the landlocked countries in the world. Landlocked countries. All right. Nicole, what'd you learn this week?
All right, so in physics class, I learned if you're talking about a free fall scenario, so if you just drop any object from rest, the acceleration due to gravity will be negative 9.81 meters per second squared for any object.
Interesting. Teacher?
Mr. Hyatt.
Mr. High. Okay, we talked about him last week, right? Yes. And Jack, let's give a shout out to your teacher. Who are you referring to?
Miss Varghese.
Miss Varghese, okay. Rahil, what'd you learn this week?
In my math class, I learned about end behaviors and degrees and how to graph them, whether the function is even or odd, and how the graph differs if it's even or odd.
Okay, what's the math class?
Pre-calc with Miss Sheehan.
Miss Sheehan, okay, great. She's an amazing new teacher. She's been there, I think this is her second year here. So good stuff there. And Jake, what'd you learn this week?
Well, this week in my English class is called Is That Even Legal? Where we learn about legalities in the United States and laws and such. I learned about federalism in the United States, and specifically dual federalism versus cooperative federalism. And it's just interesting to see sort of how the founding fathers disagreed on how the country should be run. Should the states have control or should the government have control? And today we've sort of settled with this sort of weird dichotomy of the states are kind of different and they can influence their own laws, but there's also the federal government has a lot of power. And I pointed out that this is especially prominent with how the federal government couldn't really do anything about coronavirus. Like they couldn't force all the states to pass laws about masks and such, and the states sort of had to do that independently. And so it's sort of just interesting to see how the way that our country is run, whether it's federalist or cooperative federalist, can sort of influence our actual real world scenarios.
Great insights there, Jake, as always. And that's, what class is that?
That's called English Is That Even Legal?
And who's the teacher?
Ms. Messinger.
Okay, so really interesting topic for sure, right? Federalism, it's laid down in the U.S. Constitution. Of course, the 10th Amendment grants states' rights. And so during this whole issue of COVID and how different countries responded, and whether or not President Trump was responsible for doing good things or bad things compared to China or another country, that's the key thing, Jake, is that states' rights. Even if the president wanted to, he couldn't force states to do what he thought was best or what the administration thought was best, right? Governors decide that. And so that's an important distinction to make in our republic, of course, which is clearly what we are. So great insights as always. Great job, everyone. And that was...
What did we learn this week?
Okay, always a fun segment. What interesting about this year compared to last year, is you notice we keep coming around back to the same teachers, right? Last year, we had 5 or 6 classes each, didn't we? Now this year, we have 2 or 3 or 4 classes each because of our change in schedule related to coronavirus. So sorry to the teachers we can't give as many shout outs to, but those that get them, good for you. All right, let's continue to move on, talk about the King Cast. And now we're going to talk about, as always, our great community, King Things and Sports. Lily, start us off.
We're excited to announce our 5th anniversary of #GiveKingTuesday coming up in 20 short days. On December 1st, our community will once again come together and give back in support of our students. Our goal this year is to reach 500 donors in 24 hours, setting a record for the most donors on a single day. Mark your calendars for Tuesday, December 1st, and stay tuned for more information.
The last night of the middle school and upper school fall play readings will be on November 20th from 7 to 9 p.m.
For the online school store new online order pickup process, please be aware a new process is in place for picking up orders placed online. After receiving your confirmation email that your order is ready for pickup, please check your spam folder as well. Please come to the school store at your earliest convenience.
There will be a practice ACT on November 24th from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This is for grade 10 and 11 students who have signed up for an online practice ACT.
The King Cares Person-to-Person Thanksgiving Food Drive is from November 16th to November 20th. Food donations will be collected all next week at each division during drop-off. The most needed items are hearty soups, cereal and oatmeal, peanut butter and jelly, canned fruits and veggies, dried and canned beans, pasta and sauce, and protein and granola.
All right, as a group, apparently, we lead in terms of this collection of food each year. So really impressive stuff there. Very caring community. Such as America, right? We're a very charitable group of people. So great catch up on King Things. Now it's time for sports. We introduce Rahil Jaswal and Jack Zipper.
Thanks, Mr. Roach. In the NFL, the Colts beat the Titans 34-17 on Thursday Night Football. Indianapolis defense was all over Tennessee as they pitched a second-half shutout. The Colts also got some help from their special teams with a blocked punt for a touchdown in the third quarter. Running back Nyheim Hines had a career high with 112 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns. The Colts now sit atop the AFC South with a 6-3 record. Now on Monday Night Football, the Vikings will take on the Bears in an NFC North division battle. Chicago sits at 5-4 as they look to get back to winning ways after losing 2 straight, while the Vikings, on the other hand, look for their 3rd straight win after beating the Packers and the Lions back-to-back. If the Vikings want to win, they got to continue to ride the hot hand of Dalvin Cook, who has been terrorizing the league the last 2 weeks. Chicago will not only have to stop Cook, but they have to get their offense sorted out if they want any hope at winning and contending later in the season. Now in the NBA, Russell Westbrook wants out of Houston after 1 season. Westbrook was traded in the offseason to Houston for Chris Paul and helped the Rockets reach the conference semifinals before they fell to the eventual NBA champion, Lakers. It will be interesting to see if he goes to one of the LA teams, New York, or somewhere else. Speaking of Chris Paul, the Thunder have opened up trade discussions for the eventual Hall of Famer. CP3 and the Thunder were the surprise of the season before falling the first round of the playoffs to Houston. There are many talks that he might end up in LA with LeBron and Anthony Davis, or joining and giving Devin Booker some much-needed help in Phoenix. Paul would be a good fit for Phoenix with some young rising stars that he can mentor and teach to bring the Suns back to the postseason and even make some noise in the playoffs. Well, we'll have our answers soon as free agency starts on November 20th, 2 days after the draft.
All right, Rahel, excellent report as always. This week, do something a little differently. Our listeners know, our viewers know, we record on weekends, on Saturdays, to make it easier for the students, and our editing team needs time to get this thing turned around. And so it's tough for a sports crew, right? We're kind of in the middle of the sports period, and so we have to look backwards a little bit and project a little forward, but we want to check into the Masters Golf Tournament. Unusually played, here we are in November, looking at Augusta in November, really pretty still, but not as colorful. And of course, there's no one on the course in terms of crowd support. So really interesting to watch. I've watched every Masters for the past 40 years. Maybe I missed 4 when I was overseas working, but always exciting. It was on this morning to finish the second round. And Jack's going to join us for an update on the Masters. Jack, what can you tell us? What's happening over there in Augusta?
So this tournament is an unusual one as it's being played in November. But what's even more unusual is the scores that these guys are putting up. 5 people are tied for the top spot, all on pace to tie the lowest score that Tiger Woods set in 1997 with 18 strokes, and Jordan Spieth tied in 2015. What's even more surprising is that there are 9 players within 2 strokes of the leaders, which means that anything can happen. Some other stories, the Vegas favorite Bryson DeChambeau is struggling at 1 under, while Tiger Woods, who looked washed out in the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, has been doing well at Augusta, still in striking distance at 5 under par. One thing is for sure, this is going to be a wild weekend at Augusta National.
Yeah, they're going to target the flags, right? The greens are soft, the putts aren't rolling a little faster today than it was Thursday and Friday, but the weather has been damp and cool. And Bryson DeChambeau had another interesting period in his second round where he got a triple bogey. I think it was on 3 or 4. I'm sure you've seen the video. It was a shot just into the rough, okay? If there was a crowd there, he would have found it, but it was a plug ball. They never found the ball, and ended up taking a triple bogey. You know, if you follow Bryson, he's had some trouble with the referees this year in a way that makes him a little bit prickly with the golfing public. But again, he was challenged. Big recovery though, because it looks like he made the cut. He's going to be there in the 3rd round.
Yeah, yes.
All right, thanks for that catch up on the Masters. Okay, let's go in for our hot topic. Jake Murphy checks in with us each week on a story that interests him. Jake, this week we have some history. The Trump campaign continues their legal proceedings with the hopes of reversing the vote count. But the odds of that outcome seem to be dropping each day. He just reappointed Rudy Giuliani as his head lawyer for this effort. President-elect Biden gets closer and closer to the office, and with him, he brings Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, which is historic. Jake, tell us about this.
That's right. We have some historic times for the White House. Senator Kamala Harris, a Democrat from California, has become the first woman to earn the title of Vice President-elect. Harris's victory represents many firsts to come to the White House. As the daughter of an Indian and Jamaican immigrants, she will be the first woman and first person to identify as Black and South Asian American in the role of vice president. As an alumna of Howard University, she will be the first vice president to have graduated from a historically Black college and be a member of a Black sorority. Harris had made her mark in politics in California, where she served as San Francisco district attorney before going on to become attorney general of the state, the first African American to serve in that role. Harris's background as a prosecutor has made her a target of criticism from progressives seeking criminal justice reform, but Harris has argued that she sought reform from within her role as a prosecutor. As San Francisco DA, she promised to never seek the death penalty. She kept that promise even when prosecuting a person accused of killing a San Francisco Police Department officer, angering her political allies. But she also took heat from other policies, such as a campaign to combat truancy in San Francisco in an effort to reduce crime. Harris took her prosecutorial chops to the U.S. Senate after being elected in 2016. Her skills helped her become a tough interrogator in confirmation hearings for people like Attorney General William Barr and Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh as a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. She also serves on committees for intelligence, homeland security, and budget. Throughout the campaign, Harris has shared a quote from her mother, Shamala, who she said would often tell her, "You may be the first to do many things, but make sure you are not the last."
All right, great report, and a great way to finish that, right? That line, we can all embrace that line, right? Whenever we pursue something, bring someone along with you, right? Teach those behind you. I think that's really interesting. Tom Brady actually was commenting on the same kind of concept a few weeks ago with respect to his senior status in the NFL and what he does for rookie players, right? Pass it along, right? Teach them, bring them with you. It's a really interesting quote to be sure. All right, nice report, Jake. Excellent work by the team so far. Let's go ahead and finish off the day with a discussion about the economy and markets. As always, we check on the data. You cannot trade and invest without finding out what's going on with the data. Real-time analysis of the health of the U.S. economy, critically important. Jake, start us off.
Friday, October Producer Price Index, 0.3% versus 0.2% in September. November, University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment, 77 versus 81.8 in October.
On Thursday, initial unemployment claims, week ending 11/7, 709,000 versus 751,000 in prior week. October Consumer Price Index, 0.0% versus 0.3% in September. October federal budget balance, minus $248 billion versus minus $125 billion in September.
Wednesday, MBA mortgage applications week ending 11/6, down 0.5% versus up 3.8% in prior week.
On Tuesday, there was no data.
And on Monday, there was no data.
All right, so a quiet week. The second and third weeks are always quiet on the data front for the U.S. economy. But the highlights, of course, were the claims number continued to fall. Great sign, almost below 700,000. Positive sign to be sure. Producer price index and consumer price index relatively tame. Remember, food prices are shooting up, housing prices are shooting up, but energy prices are really crashing to the downside, balancing that off. And then the other thing we're going to point out was, holy cow, oh my gosh, let's fear for our future, $248 billion deficit in 1 month at the federal level. Not good, really not good, right? We're on projections of President Trump's going to be the most indebted president in American history, obviously related to COVID, but really in the wrong direction. $248 billion in 1 month. That's the budget of some countries for the whole economy. All right, as always, we need to look ahead for this week. What's going on with this week? Jake, start us off for Monday.
Monday, November Empire State Manufacturing Index.
On Tuesday, we've got the October retail sales, October capacity utilization and industrial production, September net long-term Treasury international capital flows.
On Wednesday, we have MBA mortgage applications, week ending 11/13, in October housing starts.
On Thursday, we have initial unemployment claims of week ending 11/14 and the Philadelphia Manufacturing Index and October existing home sales.
And on Friday, there was no data.
Sorry, Rahel, you got no data this week. I find it fun to talk about that. We'll get you covered next week, don't worry. All right, now as always, we got to check on markets. Remember, this is week over week. This is from last Friday to this Friday, okay? So it's a week over week change. Why don't we start us off, Rahel?
S&P 500, 3,585, up 74 points.
The Nasdaq is at 11,829, which is down 33 points.
We have the 3-month Treasury at 0.091%, which is unchanged.
10-year Treasury, 0.898%, up 7 basis points.
30-year Treasury, 1.648%, up 5 basis points.
Euro dollar, 1.1830, down 50 pips.
Dollar yen, 104.6, up 130 pips.
We have the sterling at 1.3190, up 20 pips.
Dollar CAD, 1.313, up 100 pips.
West Texas Intermediate, $40.12, up $3.
We have Brent, $42.78, up $3.
Gasoline, $1.12, up 3 cents.
We have gold at $1.88, down $64.
Okay, so some dollar strength on the week, gold weakness, that correlation stays in place. Equities, you can't keep it down, right? The talk. Fed's there, government's there, keep the markets boosted. So more of the same, no question. Interest rates a little lower on the short end of the yield curve, a little higher on the long end of the yield curve. Uncertainty remains there, but a relatively quiet week, although volatility can spike this week for markets, and traders love that. All right, let's go ahead and finish off the show with our friendly reminders. Lily.
Do your reading.
Do your homework.
Come to class prepared.
Use your blinker when making turns or switching lanes.
Stop signs mean stop.
No texting while driving. You're going to kill yourself. All right, that's it for us. Thank you to our great team, as always. Rahel, Jack, Lily, Jake, and Nicole. Tell your friends and family to listen to the KingCast at kingschoolct.org, campus site page, or on YouTube. Search for King School. All right, that's it. We're out of here.